We're here above Elevator Sound, legendary synth shop in Bristol, in the Beepboop workshop, and we got none other than Mr. Beepboop himself, Jack, here, and they call you Mono Jack, don't they?
Yeah. You got to do something different to stand out in Bristol. There's a lot of Jacks.
It's appropriate because we're surrounded by a load of Mono Jacks and beeping and booping Eurorack synthesizers.
The name comes from that was my stage name a long time ago.
Okay.
So I make that sound like I've gigged a lot, but before I started this, I was performing live improvised kind of techno at open mic nights and a few things in Worcester back home. So yeah, that was the name I used, and it came about. You know, I'd ordered a order from Mausier, and I just saw the word Monojack in capital letters, and I thought that's perfect. You know what I mean? I think a lot of the stuff I do, I love puns and word association. So when saying,
we were just talking about Alan Partridge, weren't we?
Absolutely, yeah. I hate to admit it, but I think I'm worryingly AP sometimes. Yeah.
So let's take me back before even the playing the music in Worcester. What got you started at all in this synth stuff, electronics?
So I think I could talk about the first time, like, you know, I played with electronics, but I think the whole attitude of like approaching it is being kind of DIY minded to begin with.
Okay.
And also this desire to want to create. I was always very scientific, but also very creative as a child.
Yeah, that's interesting. You got the empirical and the creative side.
Yeah.
How do they?
Well, that's there's a saying by one of my favourite gurus, and he says, be scientific about art and artistic about science. Nice, and that really strikes a chord with me. So I feel like, I was really interested in sculpture, and there's an artist called Gabo who was a constructivist, and he was experimenting with, you know, this kind of more mathematical approach to architecture, and things like this really inspired me when I was younger. And then, as well as doing that, you know, I always had tried to make music, but I couldn't seem to get anywhere with it. You know, I'd pick up a guitar and spend quite a long time with it, and piano. So there's always this drive to want to create. You know, and also I was painting a lot of pictures and making sculptures, you know, in my own time. So yeah, this desire, this will to create, and I think with the help of my family, who have always been very practical and have an attitude of, if you want to do something, you can do it. When one of my synths broke, I had a very, very small monotron, you know, the Korg monotron.
Sure, yeah.
And I think the case broke on it or something, and then on the back of the PCB I saw these small words, LFO, VCO, all these acronyms. And I guess, that was the first time I thought about, approaching electronics. I was having to do a bit of soldering for my dad at work, but so I had a soldering iron, I had a few bits and bobs lying around. I guess you could say it all started with that, and then through wanting to learn about what these acronyms meant, and then I realised, I could control this thing from a sequencer. So I made a Baby 8, courtesy of help from Peter Edwards, Casper Electronics, his kind of hacky lo-fi DIY page. There's an LED driver on it. I think I've still got it printed out in there, and that was my first circuit. And you know, seeing an LED just light up, you might think, it's very basic. For a lot of people, they might know the theory of, that's what I expect. But it was magic. Yeah. That's kind of, I guess, where it started. I mean, I was building USynth modules. I found, I was building these instruments, but it was all very lo-fi, 555 timers, PT239 delays, and stuff like
Available
that.
in the shop?
Yeah, soon. Okay. Soon. Yeah, that's a whole nother side quest. Which someone was saying that should be the motto of Superbooth 23. That's a whole nother side quest, because I said it a lot of times. But
starting with the 555s and
the that kind of stuff. And I had even created my own standard for like my power connectors. You know, everything was based around 9-volt batteries, and you know, using two of them to make a dual power supply. And I'd made this kind of 3-pin connector system. You know, it was.
Right.
And then my friend showed me a Dopefer system.
Okay, yeah.
And that was it. I realised, oh my god, like I'm not on my own. I'm not in this little work. You know, I knew there was stuff online, but yeah, it was all happening.
It's interesting because you do start off at a kind of isolated way, and like you made your own kind of system.
Yeah.
The 9-volt with the plugs.
Yeah.
Because just out of maybe I don't want to say ignorance, but you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Naivety. I had no idea how much, and that's something I'll probably talk about a lot. Most of what I'm doing and what you're doing and other people, you know, any attempt to kind of claim it as your own is futile, and you're just going to be creating a rod for your own back. You know, it's all built on other people's work, time, energy, and love and stuff like that. So, I don't feel like I've done it. You know, we're just playing around with other people's stuff. But it's interesting how people isolated come up with the same ideas. So, you know, even though I had no awareness of it, other people were trying to create, you know, instruments like this and had been for a long time. So it was really nice to know that I wasn't alone. And you know, like I said, it can be a bit isolating. This year we spend a lot of time in our workshops tinkering around with things that maybe never work. But then at least you've got somebody to talk to about it, which is really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about we feel that there's not really a competition between, you know, us and other people. It is a collaboration. You see other people's ideas, and that sparks another idea. And I'm talking too much, but
no, you're absolutely right. Any attempt to kind of claim any of this as your own is just ridiculous. If you really analyse it, I mean, have you ever had a truly original idea?
Yeah, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, philosophically speaking, it's like everything we do is based on our accumulated knowledge and experience, which can only come from others. Some might say there's some kind of, you know, underlying, something more spiritual. But you know, on a very practical level, we've assimilated this stuff. So it was great to start working with these circuits that other people put so much time and energy with, and I was able to build a system which I've got on the floor sadly at the moment, going through some I guess I could call it restructuring, but you know, ultimately I'm just trying to sort out the chaos of the workshop. Everything in it is expanded to the point where I'm tripping over. It's like a game of Tetris, and you know, game over. It's maxed out. So thankfully, I'm going to have another room next door to this workshop here at Elevator, and I'll be able to set up my big wall of synths again in there, which probably isn't the best use of, you know.
No, that's a perfect use of it.
Test facility, you know, business expense, nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. You've got to stay inspired as well. You have a
absolutely.
Good work environment.
Yeah, because it's really hard to get the balance, isn't it? I don't know if you've found this, you know, with your orders, but unfortunately, since I've come back from Superbooth, I've only been able to sit down and play with my system twice, last 2 Saturdays. I did have a portable system which I took out to Vondel Park, which is great, but yeah, all too often we end up doing the day-to-day, and ultimately what this was all about was finding ways to create sounds. And it's ended up being a tangent of a tangent, you know. Before you know it, you're talking about boxes and storage, and you know, you realise me and Marco have this joke, you know, downstairs. As soon as we start talking about anything like that, I just walk off, because it's like, what are we doing, you know? What are we doing?
It's quite amazing what you've built here. It's fantastic.
Oh, bless you, thanks,
it really
man. Yeah, it's been a lot of, you know, hard work and doing things the wrong way to work out the right way of doing it. I think, you know, I did have a girlfriend when I started this, so yeah, that says it all really, doesn't it?
Yeah, we want to go I won't delve too far into that.
No, but that's the way it is, you know. If you want to do this, you have to completely live it and completely absorb yourself in it. I mean, I'm here, I work until I drop, so if I was doing this as a 9 to 5, there's no way it would work or ever have got this far. If you tried to pay someone what I pay myself, it'd be illegal.
Right.
So, you know, there's a reason it kind of has got to this point, because it had to, otherwise it just wouldn't exist. You know, if I just let everything find its own place, we wouldn't have been able to come in the room today. But I appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, you've been coming in. What's really cool.
I've seen the progress in here. Yeah, it's quite amazing. Yeah, and so. Going back to like the 555 timers.
Oh yeah, sorry. You'll have to do this a lot. I'm glad you can remember.
and then up to this point, where you've developed here, what sparked the transition from making those things for yourself, and then making them as Beepboop for other people?
I think for a long time I was just doing it for myself. So like I said, I was building these USimp systems, which if you are looking at a way of building your own system, recommend check that website out, because it's all like Moog, you know, clone schematics, and very accessible, great way to teach yourself electronics. And you know, I was doing it for myself for a long time. Then I realised, I was building a lot of kits through Fonk, big up to Fonk, and I think a lot of people say this, you know, they're part of the journey and how I kind of got to where I am. Anyone who wants to teach themselves electronics, I recommend just buy some kits, build them. They might not work, but you'll learn about electronics by trying to fix them. You know, anyway, that's a whole
problem solving.
Yeah, problem solving. Yeah. So, and then I realised, I could build a few of these and sell them to my friends. You know, because I've always wanted to do something for myself. Even a long time before this, I was making my own T-shirts and selling online. And for a while, I was doing synth shirts, you know, just through the shop here. So, you know, I always wanted to kind of do something myself. I was selling a few to friends, and I realised how satisfying it was to go from something that was just a few components to then hearing that person use the module at a gig. Big up to Inwards, old school friend of mine from Worcestershire, who's doing pretty well at the moment with, I think it's Small Pond down in Brighton, that's the label. Getting to hear him use.
Does that feed back into your designing new modules?
Yeah,
the way people use them.
I think if I was more business minded, I'd probably say yes, but it's more about what I want at the moment. You know, people have given me some. You know, I only mentioned this brief. People have suggested quite good ideas for modules, but ultimately, unless it's something that I want myself, it's not gonna emerge.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's you know, it's one thing to have a quick idea, and you know, bless people for thinking and going, oh, they've got a modular idea, but that is, I'd say, 1% of the actual process. It's you know, the rest of. So I heard my mates using this stuff, and I was selling a few on eBay to kind of give myself a bit of work, because I was working for my dad for a long time and doing. God bless him for putting up with me. I mean, I wouldn't have put up with me. Hence Monojack. That's why I have to work for myself. No one else could have me. So I was trying to find my own way of like looking after myself and finding a way to just do what I love. There's a if you ever need some, you know, there's different things that have given me direction in life, but someone who's really always straightened me out is Alan Watts.
Okay.
And if you're ever feeling a bit unsure about things or direction, just check out some of his videos and lectures on YouTube. He calls himself a spiritual entertainer, but there's a phrase that he said on there that, I mean, even at 16, I just couldn't believe it. Anything you can be interested in, someone else will pay you to do if you get good enough at it.
I hope so.
Yeah, no, it's true, mate. Honestly, it's worth it. Believe it, because only by believing it, you know, we make our attitude to things changes reality. I'm a true believer of that. So hearing that, and then I realised, I can make a few of these. I can, and so that's what triggered the idea. But then for a long time, I think I was quite lost. I was working, you know, for my dad, and a little bit unsure of what I was doing in life, but I think everything I was doing whilst I was working with my dad got me to where I was. I was doing CAD/CAM design for him, making vinyl signs. I was restoring camper vans and painting. So, you know...
and it's that problem solving.
Yeah, problem solving, being mechanical, hands-on. It'd give me a task some days, but with no guidance on how to do it, and I'd just be left to have to work it out myself. So... although maybe at the time it wasn't what I wanted to be doing, it all led me to where I was. And through being able to make these T-shirts and doing the CAD/CAM, I was lucky enough to bump into the guys at Elevator, and I feel like that's where it really started to happen.
Off,
yeah.
So you were doing a lot of repair work as well?
Yeah, I was doing a little bit at home. So I started doing repairs myself over lockdown. Although, like I said, I've been building bits for people. It was when I lost my job as a supply teacher.
You were a science technician, weren't
you? Yeah. So my background's chemistry.
Right. You told me you were doing the experiments in the classroom that none of the other technicians were brave enough to do.
Yeah. I got out all this stuff that was kilovolts, physics experiments, electron beam deflectors, and I think you were showing me some of the gas chamber stuff that you were quite interested. So I was getting dust in this.
Cathode rays and stuff.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I wasn't scared. I just thought, let's get this stuff out, and I loved that whilst I was a science tech, it's amazing how you can get kids interested in science by, rather than approaching it in this arid kind of mathematical or graphs, let them hear it. If you can hear...
Show, don't tell.
Yeah, absolutely. If you get some kids set up with function generators, modulating each other, they'll understand, how two waves can interact and think, way better. They won't understand, they'll feel it.
Sure.
I mean, that's,
it's inspiring as well.
Yeah. There's different ways to approach science, I think, and for some people it might be practical, but sometimes why not just sit back and go, wow.
Right.
Wow. Be in awe of the universe and how beautiful it absolutely is. Ultimately, there's nothing really to do. All we need to do is eat, sleep,
sure.
And the others, which are too crass to say on camera right now. But that's all we need to do. But yet we find ourselves kind of experimenting with this stuff.
It's the thread that I see through a lot of creative people, is that they really appreciate stuff. And other people might look at us and say, you're nutters for having that whole wall full of resistors or an old telephone exchange or something. But, surely if you appreciate things, that's a good trait, right?
Yeah, and it takes you somewhere, beautiful where you can experience something, experience nature in a more direct way. If you try to paint a picture for someone of a scenery, or describe it, it will never be the actual thing. Even a mathematical equation might represent the thing, but it will never be the thing. So, that's what as soon as you try and name it, it's not the thing.
It disappears.
Yeah. And so sometimes it's cool with kids in science lessons, just go, just dig it. Just enjoy it. And kids have great minds. I got asked some fantastic questions as a science. I mean, I was a science tech and a cover supervisor, but
maybe it links back to what you were saying earlier about when you were designing your own modular systems and the 9-volt stuff. It comes from a place of naivety, but it creates these original ideas because you're not burdened by...
Absolutely. If you already have a supposed idea of something, it will block your mind from being able to, if you think anything is concrete, everything's in flux.
Sure.
So as soon as you name it, you've tried to hold it or describe it and keep it, but it's moving. Everything's moving. So these kids would ask me some fantastic questions, and I would have loved to have carried on doing that, but I don't know. I think. The way, I was doing that, and then I got asked by Marco and the guys at Elevator, because they were selling my Synth t-shirts. Sure. That's a whole story in itself, and I'd like to say thanks to Dom Lawson, who's the reason I think I ended up here. He invited me to a gig to show off these t-shirts and sell them. Ben came to the gig, who manages Elevator, manages the shop, and he said, drop in tomorrow, we'll have a look. And then as I brought him in, Marco, the owner, popped in. He goes, VCA on a t-shirt, we'll have them. Fantastic. I didn't even have... It was just done. So they were really kind. They took... we did it on a sale or return, so it was a bit awkward at first, I was bringing down the stock and it'd get paid for later. But and I didn't really make any money, to be honest, but... It was the start of having my foot in the door. And then further, down the line, we went into lockdown, and I got a call from or an email from Marco saying, rooms coming up for available. Do you know anyone interested?
Right.
And talk about blagging it. I mean, I was like, yeah, I'll take it. I didn't even know what I was going to do with it.
Yeah.
I just thought, I've been in Worcester.
There's a point in life there.
Yeah, it was a friend of mine who was living with me at the time who said, yeah, you've got to do that because otherwise you'll regret it. And I'm so glad he did, because there's two ways. You can either be incredibly cautious about life and protect yourself, but you don't know what you've cut yourself off from. So he gave me the drive just to go that little bit further, take it on. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it or do anything, but he said, "Oh, it's this much a month." Okay, I thought, well, if I can't earn that, then okay, that at least I will have tried it. So yeah, I was doing repairs to start off with, and I had a bit of experience from doing all the DIY, but I feel like I taught myself a lot on the job.
I bet. When you have all the stuff coming through for the repairs, then it must be a great way to demo equipment. And,
absolutely.
On the cheap. And did you pick up influences from the stuff you were working on?
Yeah.
Because you had to study it in depth, obviously, to fix
absolutely.
it. So.
A lot. Thankfully, a bit like with the Eurorack community and the DIY community, the synth kind of vintage synth community is the same. It's caring is sharing is caring, and I was able to ask people for help, guidance, but ultimately it all came back to the fact that the instruments I was working on were made to be repaired.
That's it, yeah.
They were actually made, and we've talked about this, haven't we? How amplifiers, I love this, in the user manual, you'd have a schematic in the back. Now, can you imagine? Now, that is, I love that, because people are so talked down to and made to feel like they can't do things. You don't even get the schematic in a technical document now. It's not even available. But there, at that point, they're saying, well, we believe you have every ability to understand this thing if you want to, and if you want to maintain your own amplifier. And talking to my stepdad and my dad, everyone's attitude was, even cars, you fixed your own stuff. Mm-hmm. I would never ask anyone to wash my clothes. I would never ask anyone to clean my house. I've always felt like if you're going to do something, you do it for yourself. And I don't know why it feels like we've been dumbed down a little bit. And taught that we're told almost that we can't do these things. And also, it's stopped manufacturing. The way they build stuff now it's just a joke, really. It's not only is it not meant to be repaired, it's not meant to last. Obsolete. It's being built into the thing.
Planned obsolescence.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So these vintage Roland synths, they're incredible. You open up the service manuals for them, part numbers, schematics. So with the basics that I'd learned from building up circuits, I was able to trace circuits enough to kind of hone down to an area. Okay, I've got a symptom. Mm-hmm. So I know what area of the schematic that's going to be. And then by process of elimination, I would work my way back to where it would be just a minimal number of possibilities. And then one by one, I would resolve that, or even just replace it with new parts, maybe socket stuff, so I could be sure. Tick it off until, and by process of elimination, it should lead you to one point. Now that's assuming your understanding's correct. If you get to the point where you've done all that and there's nothing left, then your understanding isn't correct. Then you start going back to not first principles, but you start going back to, do I really understand? Something that a lot of people will come across when signal tracing, inverting op amps. What would be the thing that would trip everybody up if you started off? Well, where's my signal? Well, it's zeroed at the node because it's inverted. Now, you wouldn't appreciate that unless you actually understand what the thing's doing. So it's this play between having a go, eliminating it to a small area, and then when you then fix the thing, you go, so that's what, So, now that's not an approach that can make money.
The slow accumulation of knowledge.
But I was able to do that. I was charging people an hour and working for 4. Right. And as long as I charged a couple of hours a day, I could scrape by, and that's what I did. So, I don't, and that's a bit why I've had to knock the repairs on the head, on the head. It's just not.
But that's got you now to a point where you can create your own stuff.
Yeah.
Which is great.
We've got talking about taking influences. I've got at some point 2 HP Juno VCF, which is drawn out. I've got a load of old voice cards which I've repaired, you to take the epoxy off them and reflow them and do some stuff. Anyway, they're working, and the idea will be you have a 2 HP VCF and you can plug the old boards in. And I love what DinSync and these guys are doing with it, making these clones, and System 80. There's some great people cloning and replicating the stuff. So I could go down that route, but
there's some of your stuff is very outside the box.
Thank you. That's what I want. Yeah,
Right.
that's the tagline I like.
Okay, good.
It's a bit cheese, but yeah, think outside the Eurorack box. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, it's great. It makes me think that Eurorack, this kind of system where you don't have to make a box.
Yeah.
It's just a panel. Can be like a really good platform for something broader than.
Yeah. You're a great example of that as well. I think you probably there aren't many companies, and it'd be nice to see more people like us. Bringing other things. We've all made subtractive synth patches. We've all played around with techno and modular, and it is great. But my influence at the moment, is music concrete and trying to find new approaches to using tape in Eurorack. But I love your electromechanical. You show me parts which I never knew existed, and it's really quite exciting because it's a whole, like the whole science of radio is in itself is a whole.
It's side quest. There's a lot of rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like this is a great meeting because the power supply's done.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that, and that is actually quite a limiting factor in trying to release electronics. If I were to create a standalone item, there's actually quite a lot of things you should do to get it legal and approved.
Sure.
This, by doing it in the Eurorack format, means that the power supply takes the brunt of the responsibility, really, and then we're able to just tap into those power lines and then do our thing. It also means, like say, all these specialists can start to play around with weird stuff. So I do want to do a radio module. I've got a 1U kind of because you're talking about the format, but going to just talk about 1U for a second. I think this is really exciting, and I think I might be giving the game away a little bit, but I hope this inspires some other people. I was chatting to Manu, I think his name was, from Bafako, on the Sunday after Super Booth, and I was saying I love his set, and I was talking about music concrete, and then somehow we got onto that's it, talking about Eurorack as a format, and I was saying about specifically how I think 1U, although a lot of people are stuck in the paradigm, making malts and stuff for it, okay, maybe you want your IOs at the top, that's not a bad use of the space, but I don't think it's particularly inspiring because,
it blew me away when I saw this, running the whole length of it, I thought, that's
thanks, man.
Fantastic, because it is very limiting, this shape.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I'm going to make a 3U version at some point, but as well as this, I've got a couple of other things planned for 1U that, I said I wouldn't do this, but I'm always talking, I've probably talked myself past my life expectancy now and the things that I will want to achieve, but what about a big 1U reverb? Mate, it's perfect for it because and the radio as well, 1U radio, things where this as well. I'm going to have at some point. I'm going to get some help from. I like bigging people up, and as you know, I told you before, I bigged you up on the Super Booth video,
kind of,
and I should have bigged up WD41, who is going to be helping me with the kind of premium version of this. I want to make this accessible, ultimately. There will be a DIY version a long way down the line, so please don't pester me about that too much, because I've got to get the thing just working first. But I want it to be accessible. So this version I've done with off-the-shelf stuff. There isn't even any tape head adjustment. I've used hex standoffs for our guides. This is a skateboard bearing.
Oh, great.
Okay, so it was stuff that was around, but yeah, it feels like there's scope to do some really nice milled aluminium pieces for this. And so WD41, who's got the skills, tools and expertise with that kind of stuff, he's going to hopefully be making some nice bits for that. And I like the idea of having some extended reels up here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I like
to
that
be
idea.
when you're doing stuff with, I mean some of the issues that I've come into with this is, of course, it's great having it along this length. This made a huge difference once I had a big curvature.
Sure.
But this is way too tight, this curve here.
Okay, yeah.
So I think by having some reels, this could really help. But coming back to talking about the 1U format, I just think it's great for anything that's practical, hands-on, maybe big, or has to be out of the way. So I can see in the future having a big radio antenna off this corner, which maybe you could have done with a system on your right, top right or whatever, but still, I think it's very cool. Maybe a theremin. But yeah, I really like the idea of having a big spring along here that I can smash, crash, and as well as that, do feedback through. Sure. So using the, have we got one around here? Oh yeah, there's one here. Eurorack sound system. In fact, I'm going to get the poster for this because it's jokes.
Nice mugs as well, by the way. Lovely mugs.
Yeah. Beepboop is basically. When you said, oh, how did, what keeps Beepboop going? Oh, how did you get this far? I should have just said tea. Caffeine. So I love doing a bit of branding, and this all comes back to like doing the designs. But yeah, I'll let Liz speak, and with the siren in the background. That's Stokes Croft for you, yeah? Who needs a door when you've got a big metal sheet and a transducer?
Absolutely.
A.k.a. Eurorack sound system. So, you could use that to drive the spring, basically. Yeah, Make it vibrate, and then with the contact module, pick it up, yeah.
It's a great thing about modular, so, just have these discrete parts and then put them together to make something big.
Yeah, I don't even have to make it literally only has to have the transducer for the spring, and then everything else will just be passive, because all I need to do is come down into my contact mics, done. So I'm sure some other ideas are loitering with intent at the back of my brain, but I won't give them any mind at the moment because there's so many other things going. But yeah, 1U radio, I think that's a vibe.
Do you have any like design rules, common threads that run through the modules?
So I monojack solemnly swear never ever to put a pot on a 2 HP module again. It's a ridiculous idea. Absolutely, just ridiculous. Like, I did it early on, and I mean, yeah, it's kind of fine if you're looking at the thing on KiCad and designing it, but I mean, you've got to be able to grab the thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm redesigning some of these earlier modules with sliders now. So I've just sent off for a new 2 HP tape head that will have a slider built in rather than the knob. And I think for my mixer, I'm going to redo a mixer with big faders, because after demoing at Super Booth, I realised the way I play, and perform, is with sliders. I want to be able to hit them, and also something, what was it, Tom Whitwell said that stuck with me about faders. You can instantly see where they are. I look over at that, boom. If I look at my thing, I've got to really process it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, design rules, I'm going over the faders more and more. Okay. Now, where things there's two kind of approaches, I guess. Sometimes you start off with, ultimately I wanted a system I could perform with. I said a long time ago I was performing under the name like Monojack and making these kind of like improvised hard techno kind of things. I should post some of those. If you want to hear any of my kind of live stuff, just check out like Monojack on Instagram. I've just started posting stuff again because I felt it wasn't right to put it on Beepboop, me just making silly noises. So I've started putting that kind of stuff up again. But yeah, ultimately this stuff comes either from the desire for something to perform with live, and then I can imagine from a space in my system, that's what I need to perform. So or it starts with a really interesting part. So right. Talking about repairs, actually, that's something I didn't mention earlier. From doing all the repairs, I built up a bit of a stock of different parts and it gave me part numbers, as well as bless Emily for the Mutable. I didn't mention that earlier, but that's a big footnote in how I got started. Sure. I was able to understand how practically, rather than just from a textbook, practically how op amps and everything else work. So yeah, taking that kind of stuff and having all these parts around, I'd be like, that's a really nice switch. So these switches that I use in here we are, come from Mackie mixers.
Right.
Yeah. So I look at what failed, and that I think is something that a lot of I've been doing modular repairs, and so I see what fails. So more and more now I'm going to move away from these plastic trim pots. They're fine as long as you make sure that there's no wobble on them. There's a lot of brands that are using them and they make their holes way too big, which means the shaft has too much play and then they break after a few years. I mean, the amount of those. But one mine, I've got it to a tolerance of about like a fraction of a mil either side. So I mean, if you feel that there, there's no.
Oh yeah.
See what I mean? There's nothing. So by doing the repairs, I was able to see not only what fails, but also the parts that carry on working. So yeah, I mean, how's your part stockpile coming along? Is it?
Me? Oh, I just had to recalibrate everything, move from my smaller boxes to bigger boxes.
Yeah,
and stuff,
it happens, doesn't it? You just keep outgrowing stuff, but then you don't want to put it in a big box to start off with because you've got only limited space. So it's just constantly playing around. But as you upscale, I started off having to order everything, for the batch, or I wasn't even building for batches. It was like build to order.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started to be able to get a few parts in, and although I'm, woe is me, I'm not, making a lot of money. The one thing I have been able to do is build up my stock, and there's no. I mean, you've been there when you want to build something on a Sunday, and you've got this idea in your mind. You might have even drawn it out, and you're like, right, I want to build this on perf board.
Yeah. Where is it?
Where is it? But in here, I can get the parts out, and those 1U tape tiles. I mean, it was just beautiful. I hadn't even got the bombs ready for all of these, but I just went in all my drawers. I had some, and if I didn't have this, I could rewire that. Yeah, I feel so blessed because I remember when I'd wait like a week and a bit for one pot to turn up from Fonk to finish off a module, and I feel very blessed to have got to a place now where I'm not making a lot of money, but I was able to get my oscilloscope at last. For a long time I was using an old school one. And
I've got about 5 broken ones of those.
Oh god, they look good though, don't they? Yeah, no. If there's one thing I'm not talking about those experiments. I mean, I was doing. Looking back now, I think I've been quite lucky over the years. We were talking about electric shocks, and I don't think I'm going to risk any more cathode ray stuff because I think I've had all my 9 lives. Yeah. Bless. It's So it's an interesting format, and I can see kind of later on things coming down into 3U, but
do you get much of a chance to do like one-off builds as well as doing this?
In fact, I mean, there's a lot of things that I would love to show you, like prototypes and ideas, things that I build for myself. But I think some of it would be giving stuff away that I want to do.
Secrets.
It's not even that. If I could get on and do it right now, I would tell people. But I kind of want it to be a bit of a surprise when I do come around.
It puts a lot of pressure on you as well, doesn't it?
But I think there's a couple of things I could just get out and show you. So when I'm talking about just making things on a Sunday, this is. I mean, these are probably 2 good examples. I'll just talk about tape machines.
Look at this.
So this is a prime example.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm just showing the people.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. So this one was a very, very early tape machine. All I wanted to do was find a way to control the motor and the solenoid on it. And then later on, I've made my own PWM circuits for it. But it's just this idea of, all of this stuff I was able to just find around the workshop, start building up.
Get it done.
And make it. So I feel very lucky to have got to this point now because the creative process of making this stuff, I don't know if you've got a lot of projects going on at the moment, but what is quite stifling is the gap. Sometimes you just want to work on something and work on it until it's done.
Sure.
And that's when you're at your most productive. Unfortunately, that's not possible when you try and run a business.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I do struggle with the actual business side of it. This week, anyone who's emailed me since Super Booth, I'm doing my best at the moment, but ultimately, it's chaos here. It looks quite good here. You don't want the rest of this. The value of having the parts here now in stock, it's just made my life wonderful. And I'm moving to Bristol permanently from my hometown of Worcester. I feel like I'm going to be able to do this more and more on a weekend. I used to.
Great. Let's go back to those 555 builds.
Yeah. But I turn off
on a grander scale now.
Yeah, well, actually, this one still has a 555 in it, which
don't diss the 555.
But the problem I'm having with this is that if I want to do PWM with it changes the frequency and the PWM.
Sure.
So I've moved to a LM393 triangle core, which I'm then anyway. So the new one is more CVable. I've called it.
That's the great thing about making these prototypes. It's real. You can play with it, and then you can figure out exactly what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
If it's all in your head, and then you just do an iteration.
There are too many people, I think, are working. Well, no, it's their approach, but a lot of people are working from. Okay, in theory, this is an interesting modular idea, and they haven't actually heard it or played with it tactically.
Have you ever struggled with like a fear of failure, really? Like, because you could think, oh, how do I make this tape thing, and then think about it so much, and never actually do one, even though this might not be perfect.
Yeah.
You've done something.
I'm starting to. For a long time, I wasn't releasing things because I was worried they weren't perfect, and now I'm getting to a nice point where I'm finding peace with things as they actually are. Although I used to play live, I've been terrified of doing it here in Bristol, and even that word there, I'm hearing myself say that and how odd that is. But I was, and then after doing this year a few exhibitions and playing with the system in front of people, I'm feeling like I'm not scared of failure. Everything is as it is, and it's your mind that turns it into failure. It is just what it is. If you look at something and say that went wrong, well, you've made it wrong. If you look at it and say, oh, well, that's interesting, that's pretty.
Find the positive.
Yeah, you find the positive. So this idea earlier, I was saying how attitude creates reality. By having, even when things have been difficult here, and I thought, how am I going to keep going? Having a positive attitude is what, as ultimately, I think, got me through in the end. Yeah.
And linking in with that is your project Soldier Zen.
Do you want
to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think looking back at it, I think I wrote the pamphlet for myself. It's all about basically using soldering as a mindfulness technique to bring yourself back into the present moment. So often, and watch yourself and watch your mind, and you'll see how even when you're doing something very, very simple, how many times your mind will be drawn away from where you actually are. And I counted the other night when I was just doing a simple solder session because I feel like I'm out of practice of it, just building up stock, and I made a little tally of every time my mind went away from what I was actually doing, and it went into double figures. Okay. And that makes you realise how unsettled we are. So by kind of treating soldering as a mindfulness practice, I've been able to quiet down the mind chatter that's not useful. And it isn't. It'll be things self-judging or you in the future or in the past, but really all there ever is now. So to try and come back into the moment, and I've written a pamphlet on it. If you would like the pamphlet,
it's a great pamphlet.
Thanks, man. Yeah. I love leaving it in random places for people to find.
Enjoyed the Partridge-esque puns with the Om Shanti Om.
Oh yeah. So it begins with the first thing. In the beginning, the word was Om. As Om was the seed of creation, and you get a 0 ohm resistor on the front of it to help you find the path of least resistance in life. So if that ain't electronics pun, I don't know what is. But check out the fundraising page on Just Give. You'll find out a bit more about that.
Fantastic. So you got lots coming up then.
Yeah. Oh,
so much
my life. It doesn't. I'm trying to live. There was a long time when I didn't feel like I was making the most of life, and I finally feel like it's a bit like I was saying to you before we started this. It's chaotic. You can get yourself super stressed about it, and always want to be, thinking, oh, I've got to get this built. I've got to get this module out. I've got to finish this design. But just remember to enjoy it, because before you know it, it will all be over. It goes so quick. Absolutely. So coming back to it and just trying to find a way to enjoy it. Yeah.
Where can people find out more about Beepboop?
So best way to follow me is Instagram. This is very Beepboop at the moment. So May's newsletter is going to be out in June. Yeah, that's where we're at the moment. I came back from Super. I haven't been able to get
time's a concept.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all relative. So if you go on my website www.beepboopelectronics.co.uk, there's a sign up on there for the newsletter, which will have updates about kind of what I'm working on, workshops that are maybe going to be happening in the future, and just beepy boopy news. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh, bless, man. Thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it.
That was really fun.
And you can now I've done all this talking. I want to hear what he's been up to.
Well, I think we'd best get to the pub then.
Yeah, that's it. Great.
Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you soon. It's been Jack from Beepboop.
Get your solder iron out. Get started. See
Exactly.
you now. Bye.